Is Ty Montgomery the lead back in Green Bay next year? Are Le'Veon Bell's injury problems enough to knock him from the 101? And do we believe Tyreek Hill's snaps will truly be doubled in 2017? Plus, 2016 Varsity number 2 winner Brody Brown joins us live to share his thoughts about how he won his title, what he's doing with the $20,000 prize that came with it, and much more. We've got a great show for you. Dave Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Bunches and bunches, punches thrown into your frontlets, oodles and noodles, bang bullets that suckers noodles. Last album brutal, prove that we fucking brutal. I'm talking crazy, half past the clock is cuckoo. You rappers do, baby, just take your boo-boo. I'm talking brutal, master.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. with your hosts, Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
We run a brand with a structure for number one commitment. It's all a joke between mom contractions and coffins.
Thanks a lot, Rob. Greetings and salutations, all you Balkaholics and Gerzakin addicts. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman, and my co-host is the patron saint of fantasy football, the Dizzle, Dave Gerzak. Coming up on tonight's show, what's the one factor the Packers will be looking at before they re-sign Eddie Lacy? What's the best way to prep for the FFPC format in 2017? Is Gronk the number one tight end next season? And much, much, much more. Plus, 2016 Varsity number 2 $20,000 winner Brody Brown will join the show to talk about what Lions running back could be overvalued, whose off-season surgery has us giving pause, and a ton of other timely topics. In fact, we might even get into some Dave Gerzak Pro Bowl analysis. Spoiler alert on that. Shout out to the chat room right now. Feel free to post any questions you all might have in there. If you want to connect with us on Twitter, you can do so at HSFFHour, at Eric Balkman, at David Gerzak this evening. You can post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/HSFFHour. If you want to chime in and talk with us, give us a call at 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVA. You can also email the show at the inbox at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, now is the time to send them. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, all your tweets, all your emails in the fantasy feedback segment later on in the show. Our producer and mutual friend is Rob. Our audio engineer is Bryce. And that is pretty much the whole crew that is coming at you live on this wonderful Pro Bowl 2017 weekend. Dave, I said how I didn't have anything in the show rundown tonight when Rob and I talked about it, about the Pro Bowl. But you think that might be a mistake. Glossing over the Pro Bowl, never a good idea. Why is the Pro Bowl worth talking about on a high-stakes fantasy football show tonight?
Well, Balky, it's the Pro Bowl weekend. It's the most boringest weekend in all of sports. Nothing is going on.
Well, the Pro Bowl's going on. You also have some great NBA and basketball and NHL hockey.
Oh, so lame.
There's, the hot stove is continuing to heat up in Major League Baseball.
What does that even mean?
The hot stove? Like signings, trades, everything like that. People gearing up for the season.
That's what they call it?
The hot stove, yeah.
All right. I didn't prepare as well as I would have liked to, which is rare.
Can I tell you why you didn't prepare for this? There is nothing to prepare for as far as Pro Bowl analysis. I'll be shocked if you bring anything to the table here that is relevant for fantasy football fans.
Well, I'm looking here for the points spread, but this game is so terrible that I don't even know if they're out there. Let's assume that it's NFC -3 and 64. 70.
I'll take the over on that.
It might be. What do you think? Man, come on, I gotta
take the over on 64. Let's go to Sunday on there. You're not on Sunday. Go to January 28th. Or no, excuse me, 29th. 29th.
Where's the date?
You're right on the right side. There's the calendar right there. Oh. There you go. Click on that, and it should be one of the first ones. No line.
No line. It's a no-line game.
It's a no-liner.
Who are they worried about injuries with? No one.
Well, that's my point. There's plenty of people that bowed out of it. Obviously, there won't be any Falcons or Patriots playing in that game, to my knowledge. So there are players missing, but I really don't think that, again, as far as what we're here for fantasy football for 2017, many of us are already focusing, except for the people in the playoff challenge, already focusing on 2017. And I think the only thing that we're concerned with is let's just get everybody through this with no injury. If you're in a dynasty league, you don't want to see anything happen to your players like what happened to Tyler Eifert last year, where he had the ankle or knee issue. I can't remember. It was a lower leg thing. And then he missed the first, whatever it was, 4 or 5 games of the season. I just want everybody to stay healthy. This is ultimately a meaningless game. It's not in Hawaii. It's in Orlando. I don't know what the motivation is for the NFL players to play in this, especially the veterans who've done it before. So, again, I'm all for having the Pro Bowl. I just don't know how to make it exciting, and I don't plan on watching it.
You through the magic of Google, and this is, this took me 3 minutes to find this in Google, which means that it's like nowhere. Thursday afternoon, the NFC opened as 5-point favorites at 5 dimes, with the total listed at 74.
Yeah.
Since 2004, the underdog has gone 10-3 against the spread and 7-5 straight up in the Pro Bowl. Interestingly, no Pro Bowl spread has ever exceeded 5.5, but the NFC moved from 5 to 5.5 in early action. Bookmaker actually set their line also at 5, but their total was 8 points higher at 82.5.
Yeah.
Maybe you could middle the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, so you want to take AFC, money line the AFC, and then take the over at 74.
Yeah, at 5 dimes, then go to Bookmaker and take the under. I'm sure our buddy Trader has already been hitting that action for thousands.
Yeah, could be. Or the real Leroy is another possibility. Might be looking at that.
For tens of dollars.
Yes, exactly. Let's get to tonight's rundown. I want to thank Football Guys, RotoPass, and Roto World, and, of course, Rob for putting this together. I also want to remind you, if you are looking to play some high-stakes dynasty fantasy football at the $2,500, $1,250, $750, $500, or $250 price points, we have orphan teams available for you at myffpc.com. Go ahead and click on the forums. There is a dynasty thread on there. You can look at actually all the players and picks for each available team, and feel free to send your offer on that team, Dave at myffpc.com, and hopefully you can pick up one of those orphans. There's some good ones out there still. Dave, you were actually in Nashville this past week I was confused with the video that you tweeted out. It looked like Alex, the prognosticator, Alex Kaganowski, yes, FFPC co-founder, was singing karaoke, but without a karaoke machine and with a live band.
Yeah, so we were at this bar called Nudies. Now, keep in mind, Nudies is not a nudie bar.
Right.
So
but there were naked men there.
No, everyone was clothed.
Oh, okay.
Oh, my wife has the track my iPhone feature, so if she was looking up what I was doing, she'd be like, Dave is at Nudies in Nashville. But it's a bar, has a huge Cadillac on the wall. It's pretty cool. It's on Broadway, whatever. But Alex is just sitting there looking, pensive as usual. And all of a sudden, the guy, the lead singer of the band, called him out while they're playing, what is it, Lay Down Sally or whatever?
Whatever the song was,
yeah. And he made him get up there and sing it.
Because Alex wasn't into it?
Yeah, exactly. So he's like, you got to get up here and sing. And he sang it in a women's voice a couple times. And then
I thought that was his normal voice.
It was actually, I was actually impressed. He was doing a really good job.
So that was interesting. Check Dave's timeline for that. But you were in Nashville for the Fantasy Sports Trade Association Winter Conference.
Yep.
A meeting of the minds, gathering of no nerds, all cool people out there.
Absolutely.
Except for you, the only nerd there. Anyway, what's the update that you can give us from that conference? Well,
attendance was down quite a bit. There's not as many DFS startups. They've all pretty much, abandoned ship and gone away. But I was there with Alex and Steve Brubaker from the Small Businesses of Fantasy Sports, and he met with some of the lobbying guys. I believe it's Sean and Derek from FanDuel and DraftKings. They had some really good conversations, and there's a number of laws being introduced now that weren't passed last year, and the progress has actually been pretty good. So we're feeling good that small businesses maybe can survive. There's still going to be costs. It's still going to be regulated, and there's going to be all this extra stuff that we never knew we had before. But FanDuel and DraftKings have been cooperative. The FSTA has been doing a nice job in connecting everybody. So we're optimistic. Cautiously optimistic.
Well, what's interesting to me is,
but we still need money for funding, so donate.
Right, yeah, and people say, well, why do you? We've donated, we've given you money, and first of all, thank you for that, because we want to continue to offer the FFPC to everybody,
and not just us. It's everybody really. It's everyone but FanDuel and DraftKings. To be honest.
But the point I want to make is, I'm following the progress of all these bills on LegalSportsReport.com, which is a great website if you're interested in following the goings-on among all the states in the country regarding fantasy sports bills. And it just boggles my mind that legislators in different states follow poor legislation that's already happened in other states and are seemingly oblivious to small businesses, like continually over and over again. And that's another huge reason why the Small Business and Fantasy Sports Trading Association needs funds to put these lobbyists in all of these states, because seemingly they don't learn from what the other states have done all the time. Now, there has been some states that have put some good small business language in their bills, but there's still a ton of them that haven't, and it's very frustrating.
Well, in this, not to go on this about the whole show here, but Steve actually met with he went to Ohio. He met with the senator there, and he actually the senator spoke with Sarah Friedman from, I think, Gambling Compliance, and she tweeted that lawmaker was going to put some exemptions in for small businesses. Yeah. So Steve made progress there. He went to Nebraska and talked to the sponsor of that bill there, made progress there, and that bill is actually looking pretty good. But without the cooperation of, honestly, it's always better to work together than not. Right. Without the cooperation of like FanDuel and DraftKings, we kind of know what they want. They know what we need. Now that we're all kind of on the same page, like we all know what we kind of need, I think that I'm hopeful that things are going to go well. The states I worry about are the ones like, Florida, Texas, California, where they're just so big that we will have to, we can't have Steve go in there and expect to get stuff done on his own in a state like California or even like Pennsylvania. Right. So those are the states where we definitely, we need to get it going.
Check out sbfsta.org to find out how you can help there. Let's get to the rundown here. Bleacher Report's Jason Cole reports that Teddy Bridgewater is expected to miss the entire 2017 season. Cole cites a Viking source that told him the shortest recovery time for Bridgewater's injury, which was, by the way, a torn ACL and a dislocated knee, is 19 months. Ooh. Bridgewater hurt himself on August 30th in the summer of 2016, and if you're to follow that 19-month timeline, the earliest we could expect him back is around March of next year. The last update the Vikings provided from head coach Mike Zimmer, which was in his end-of-season press conference, was not much of an update. Mike Zimmer said that earlier this month, Bridgewater did not have a timetable. Sam Bradford expected to be the 2017 starter. We've seen another report come out about an hour after this one stating that the Vikings are still hopeful that Bridgewater is able to play in 2017. But, Dave, as we look at the Minnesota situation, the way it's shaping up right now, obviously bad news for Teddy Bridgewater, maybe bad news for Minnesota. Sam Bradford seemed very capable, set a record this year with completion percentage. I think the biggest winner in this might be Kyle Rudolph, a guy who had a career year, seeing a ton of targets and turning a lot of those targets into a lot of receptions from Sam Bradford. We might be looking at him as potentially a top 5 drafted tight end in some FFPC leagues next year.
Well, the nice thing about Rudolph is that you have the consistency now from year to year. If Bridgewater was healthy, there's more risk there. Now, with Bradford back, Bradford loves throwing to Rudolph. I totally agree with you. I think Rudolph is actually a pretty safe pick to come close or maybe exceed, maybe fall 10% short if he stays healthy of his prior production. He usually hasn't been staying healthy, but one good year never hurts.
83 catches for 840 yards and 7 touchdowns last year, Dave. Certainly well worthy. I don't know where he finished among tight ends in the FFPC scoring. I should know this, but I don't.
He was top 5.
Okay, so he's top 5. So you look at him for next year. I think that means good things for him. And we've seen all the targets that Stephon Diggs has gotten as well. Certainly 2017 looking to be a good year for him. Let's talk about the Packers running backs. Wes Hodkiewicz from the Packers official website says that Ty Montgomery will be used as a running back going forward into 2017. If Eddie Lacy is not retained by the Green Bay Packers, Montgomery might be the lead running back over James Starks next year. Even if Eddie Lacy does come back to Green Bay, Montgomery is definitely the handcuff at a minimum to own, a must-own for anybody who decides to draft Eddie Lacy next year. Ty Montgomery mentioned by Mike McCarthy in his end-of-season press conference stating that Montgomery wants to change his number. He's all in on running back next year. As we look at this position, I'm not really backing off. Well, I'll tell you what. Before I give my thoughts on it, the other part of Wes Hodkiewicz's report, he said that Eddie Lacy's return to the team is probably going to hinge upon his health. Eddie Lacy last season averaged over 5 yards a carry in his limited time, on pace for 1,150 rushing yards. But he had the scooter. He was in the boot. Just recently came out of that within the last couple of weeks. If you like him next year, which I think I might, good proven player off a bad year, I would look at him as my second running back. But as you look at the Packers running back situation, I've said from the get-go, the first time we got an email about this a month or so ago, I was of the belief that I think they let Michael go. They let James Starks go. They re-sign Eddie Lacy on a prove-it deal, or at least like a 2-year James Jones type deal where it's very advantageous for the team if he ends up outperforming that. And then Ty Montgomery is the backup. So I think it'll be Lacy, Montgomery, and then I think because the running back class, the rookie draft class is so deep, I believe they add somebody on day 2, and those are your 3 Packers running backs next year.
Yeah, that's not too bad of an analysis. I would just throw in a free Fitbit with Lacy, and that's it. And make him wear the Fitbit around.
I think that if you're looking for, you remember we saw those pictures last year of all the weight he lost, and we all got very excited. Well, he looked like he put a good amount of that back on even before the season started. I just think that's him. That's who he's always going to be. He can lose the weight fine if he can be in the shape he was last year, where he was averaging 5 yards a carry, where he's on pace for an 1,100-yard season. That's fine. In that Packers offense, and I'm fine with him being like a guy that I can draft outside after the top 10 running backs are off the board. Totally on board with that, and I think that's what's going to happen again next year.
Huh?
So, yeah, 11th running back. I have no problem with that right now.
I'll have to see what he.
Well, we'll crunch the rankings a little bit. We have Brody Brown coming up in just 1 minute here. Last thing I want to bring up before we get to the $20,000 winner from the FFPC Varsity 2 League last year. Palm Beach Post Joe Shad says that Jay Ajayi has just scratched the surface of his potential, according to a team source. Now, remember, 1,272 rushing yards for Jay Ajayi last year, but half of those rushing yards came in his 3 200-yard games. A lot of games last year were under 60 yards for Jay Ajayi, but it's clear that the Dolphins believe in him after he really came into his own last year, had those breakout games. Miami's offense really shifted to a ground game. Offensive line very, very good there as well. Jay Ajayi maybe moving up draft boards this coming year, Dave, and he could be a potential, he should be a top 10 running back next year if he can snare a minimum amount of catches. He catches 25, 30 passes next year. I think you can look at him as a guy who's going to finish in the top 10 for running backs. I'm liking Jay Ajayi. Not really sure where he's going to go in drafts yet, though.
Well, and he finished as RB11 last year, averaged about just 14.5 points a game. Let me just see who those big games were against. I just want to make sure I'm looking at this. The Steelers, the Bills, and the Jets. And they were all like...
Remember, the Jets
it wasn't the Jets. I'm sorry. It was the Steelers and the Bills. He had a 22 fantasy point game against the Jets.
Okay.
Steelers, Bills, and then the Bills again. What was the Bills' defensive rush ranking? They were 27th against the run. Steelers were 13th. And they were 28th against the run when they played them the second time. So he did feast on that
right.
poor defense.
Poor defenses. Yeah.
They're going to play them twice again. The one thing, like you mentioned, the offensive line, there were some issues. There they were good, but they had some injuries. And then also having a new coaching staff. I mean, that cannot be stated highly enough. These guys actually know what they're doing, and the fact they know what they're doing, they like him. I think it helps. He's never going to get a lot of catches, so that's always going to limit him. I'm a little bit leery of. I don't think I could take him in the first round, but I mean, maybe second, third range.
Yeah, I wouldn't take him in the first. I don't even think I would take him in the second. But if I could snare him in the third, I'll tell you what: receiver, and then go Jay Ajayi, Eddie Lacy, boom, championship.
Well, this year is going to be a running back year now.
It totally is.
So now Ajayi's going to be moving up, and all the receivers are going to be falling.
2016, the rise of the receiver. 2017, the revenge of the running back.
Yeah, what it's going to be is 2017 is going to be like,
2018.
Oh, damn, running backs got injured like normal in 2017.
2018,
and the receiver thing was right.
2018 return of the receiver. So that is what we have for you here in the Fantasy Flash. We're going to get to a break here. When we come back, Brody Brown, the 2016 FFPC Varsity number 2 $20,000 champion, will join us. We'll pick his brain, get his thoughts on how he won the league this year and how he plans on attacking drafts in 2017. I'm Eric Balkman. He's Dave Gerzak. This is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, and you're listening to the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Pro Bowl weekend is here. Dave Gerzak, the Dizzle, very excited. I'm Eric Balkman. I'm obviously underwhelmed. This is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Let's get to tonight's guest. He is a 27-year veteran of fantasy football. He is a high-stakes enthusiast for the past 5 years. Tonight he joins us fresh off his $20,000 win in the FFPC Varsity number 2 League. Making his debut on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, Mr. Brody Brown. Brody, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing, Eric?
Doing very well. Excited to have you on tonight and talk a little fantasy football. Before we get into that, tell us what you do for a living when you are not crushing fantasy football and what I found out, also crushing fantasy baseball. Tell us what you do for a living.
I'm a managing broker of a mortgage company and, yes, a fantasy baseball expert.
Let me ask you something. I haven't, I do pretty much like private auctions now. And Dave, you can just tune out for the next 30 seconds.
Don't worry, I have some questions for him.
Go ahead. Give me a sleeper mid-round pitcher that like a younger breakout type pitcher that you're targeting this year.
Reyes for St. Louis.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Man, he's pretty much the best pitching prospect in baseball. Yeah, I'll tell you who I like this year: Carlos Rodon. I'm a big fan of Rodon this year. I think he gets it done.
You and many others.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding, Bulky. Get on the train.
Hey, listen, that's the way I feel about it.
It's a cool name.
You have Dave. You have some questions for Brody.
So you mentioned mortgages. My wife and I are in the process of buying a condo. And why do they need all of this information? I'm so irritated by we need this and this and this and this. My credit, could be a little bit better, but what the heck, man?
I tell you what, the government has gotten into the mortgage business for the last 20 years, and each year they add a little bit more, and they're just very nervous. So unfortunately, they're going to anally probe you, and it's a lot of regulations now that there's a Republican in office. They are planning on cutting back on some of the paperwork, but unfortunately not yet.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I was actually thinking a colonoscopy would be better than actually going through this process.
You've talked to me about your anal probing experiences with the aliens before, too. So to me, this should be like a walk in the park for you.
Exactly. This is no big deal.
Been there, done that.
All right, Brody. We're moving on to fantasy, I guess. Can't get any lower than we've already been. Congrats on the big varsity victory. How were you able to execute your draft strategy and manage your squad to the top amongst such allegedly great competition?
Oh, it was great competition.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty excited. I mean, the pick kind of set up the whole draft with Zeke Elliott, made a nice, steady, I know what I can get with the amount of carries, one of the best offensive lines you'll see. Started the draft off well. Tried to grab a couple of good high catch guys with Landry and Moncrief. Unfortunately, Moncrief didn't pan out very well. Big 4th round pick with Kelsey. If you take his 1.5 per catch with the amount of catches he had, he was an elite wide receiver range. Crabtree's a nice, steady guy. And the true luck skill of it was having everybody on San Diego go down to the point where Melvin Gordon stays on the field the whole game. He was a big, big asset where, you expected Woodhead to catch some balls. You just didn't expect him to go down, and all of a sudden Gordon carried the load for, my guess is his best season in his career. So it was just it was
losing Woodhead was a huge thing. Don't you agree?
Oh, no doubt about it. I didn't expect Gordon to even have half that season. I obviously thought Theo Riddick would help and kind of bridge the gap a little, and I had a couple other good running backs that possibly could work out, but Melvin carried me to the point where, unfortunately, when he went down, it was a little stressful, but it was an amazing year. And, yes, just the fact that San Diego had nothing left, including the Keenan Allen injury, just by default gave him a lot of touchdowns and more catches than I would have expected, I guess.
Brody, let me ask you something about your number one pick, Ezekiel Elliott, and how this is going to affect 2017 drafts, because there was a lot of people that believed in Ezekiel Elliott's talent. There was a lot of people who believed in the Dallas offensive line. But what some of them couldn't get past was, am I really using a first-round pick on a rookie? And the people who did were obviously very successful. Now, I know that there was a perfect melding of talent, opportunity, and offensive line that came together for Elliott. But if you look at this year's upcoming rookie class, you have a very talented group that is headlined by Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, even Alvin Kamara. If you talk to certain people, would put him in that class as well. So as we look towards 2017 drafts, if these guys land in good situations, now obviously they're not going to have the offensive line of Dallas, but they could end up with some pretty good offensive lines blocking for them. Are people going to be more likely to pull the trigger on rookie running backs this year, maybe not in the first round, but in the second and third round, based upon what Ezekiel Elliott did his rookie year, and maybe you can throw in what Todd Gurley did his rookie year as well? Do you think that that's more likely to happen in 2017?
Yes and no. I would think in high stakes it's a little more proven where, yes, there are some risks because in like a main event type, yes, you need to hit some home runs and it's a lot harder of a process in a league like Varsity. You know, going with somebody steady, dependable might be a better option. For me, Zeke was just different because the Dallas offensive line, Alfred Morris probably could have ran for 1,300 yards, you know, with double-digit touchdowns. So it's kind of depending on Fournette, I'm not a real big fan just because he's got a little bit injury prone. Cook, I guess, depending on where he goes, yeah, he could definitely be a nice sleeper pick if he goes to an offensive line and an offense. In a sense, like the Tennessee, the teams that have great offensive lines, it makes a big difference.
That
I'm a
definitely
true believer
does.
in offensive lines.
Well, totally. I think that is not only for the running back, for the quarterback aspect too, so underrated. We talked about offensive lines on the show last week and how they often don't get their due in fantasy circles. And I think the people that can accurately gauge how good an offensive line can be can really reap the benefits on the value that you get on the skill position players on those teams. Brody, going into Week 16 of this varsity competition is very tight. It was a total points league. And among the top of the leaderboard, it was tight up there. I mean, there was some bunched up teams, but you really came through. Your team really came through that final weekend. You pile up 205 points in Week 16.
Wow.
Take us through that final weekend, what it was like seeing that score add up over that final weekend on your way to the 20K win.
Well, it started off horrible, actually. Ertz had a horrible game. And one of the guys behind us had Darren Sproles. So all of a sudden he had a big game. And I was going into basically the gist of the week, basically tied. I want to say it was Cocktails and Dreams. So it was Chad Schroeder. So all of a sudden I'm like, boy, this is going to be a tough one. And as soon as Russell Wilson had 1 point going into mid-second quarter, I left the house, I'll be honest. I went on a run. I could not believe he had 1 point going into, I want to say about 6 minutes left in the second quarter. It was that bad. Came back, hung out with the wife. I said, the dream is over. There's no first place run. Started watching TV with her. All of a sudden I flipped just as she's like, I'm going to go upstairs. I flip on the game, and all of a sudden I saw Hill take a reverse for 70 yards and a touchdown. And of course I played, the guy Bogut who was in first at the time, had him along with Lev Bell. So they both had big games. Threw the pen in the air and I said, oh boy. She went to bed. I sat and watched the game in punishment, and Travis Kelce, it was unbelievable. So yeah, it was amazing seeing like Jay Ajayi run for 200 yards, Russell Wilson putting up almost 40 points. And to be honest, didn't even need Zeke for the final game. And that was obviously scary as well because you didn't know how much he was going to play. So do you start Zeke? Do you start Al Morris? You have to start thinking those kind of things, going through your head. So yeah, it was Kelce was amazing.
So I really like this question because I'm actually not sure of how I would answer it. So I'm going to let you answer it, and then I'll just steal your thoughts. And I'll
or disagree.
I'll talk about it in 2 weeks, and I'll just parrot those.
Oh, right.
A guy that really helped you early on this year was Theo Riddick until injuries caught up with him. The return of Amir Abdullah next season, the strong finish of Zach Zenner at the end of the year. Do you think Riddick will be overvalued by high stakes players in 2017?
I actually think the opposite. I think he's going to go undervalued.
Okay.
I think a lot of people, as soon as they see the injury on a player, knock him down a couple levels because, you don't know. No one's going to know when you're going into next year, is Abdullah going to be healthy? Because they definitely want to get him the ball, but, he's had some fumbling issues. He's now had injury issues. Zenner played well. I think Riddick next year, is my guess, is he'll be the third down guy, which is kind of how I drafted him anyways. But, yeah, he was big. I like the catch. I like the known quantity, and the known quantity is on third down. He's always on the field, and he's getting me double-digit points a week, and that's really all I can ask for in a sense, for a scat back. So I don't expect him to carry it on first and second down. When he does, it's great, but I kind of assume that him and like the Duke Johnsons and the Gio Bernards, those guys get overlooked. And especially with an injury. Boy, I think that technically pegs you down about 2-3 rounds.
It definitely could, and a lot of times, again, we have short memories in the high stakes industry. It just seems like if a guy gets dinged up or hurt, we tend to not like those guys who burn us next year, and then
they always get hurt.
And then if you're not always, and
that's the way people think.
Right, exactly. I see what you're saying. Yeah. They always get hurt. And what did Rick miss? 7 games or whatever. You know. So I think that's a great point. That
recency bias. That
recency bias is what it's called. Thank you very much, Dave Gerzak. That is why you are on this show. We are talking with Brody Brown, the FFPC Varsity number 2 $20,000 winner this past year. Let's talk about Sammy Watkins, Brody. He underwent another foot procedure already this offseason. Allegedly, it is the last one he will need before the start of the season in September. And we still don't know who his quarterback is going to be. Is it going to be Tyrod Taylor? Is it going to be somebody else? Do we need to be knocking him down past the third round of drafts going forward, despite his elite talent and despite his explosive production potential when he's on the field? Is he a guy that we need to start finally dinging a little bit for the quarterback for the injury?
It's hard to answer that now because I don't know who the quarterback's going to be, but he's an immense talent. I mean, he's one of the most talented receivers in football. He's obviously a little bit injury prone, going back all the way to Clemson. As long as he has a good quarterback, they have a great running game. Third, fourth round, it's great. Just you're going to have to watch and see how he feels, coming out of this injury and, watching training camp, watching him run. It's a little scary because he said he was healthy going into camp and he was already hurt pretty much right away. I actually didn't even draft Sammy Watkins. I actually picked him up on waivers, which is kind of funny that the guy in first place had him and dropped him right away, and I ended up using him the last week of the season and scored like 25 points. So it was interesting.
That's always
good. I like Sammy Watkins a lot.
I didn't draft him anywhere last year. I did pick him up in a few spots at the end of towards the end of really the middle part of the season when you could kind of see he was going to be coming back. Normally, I don't like asking these what-if questions at this point of the year because there's so much that could happen. But given Watkins' talent and given that you do really value how well he can perform on the field, Brody, let's just paint the picture of Buffalo. I think they have like the 10th or 11th pick, somewhere around there.
Hey, before you ask the question, can I read you a tweet?
Yeah, go ahead and read me a tweet.
Bills fan for life, at Deshaun Watson 4. Bills may draft you at number 10. Looking forward to you, and at Sammy Watkins, at Shaq Lawson 90, and the rest of the team return to playoffs. That tweet was retweeted by Sammy Watkins.
Interesting. Okay.
So now go ahead with your question.
Okay, well, and all those guys are Clemson guys. Yep. Deshaun Watson, Shaq Lawson, and Sammy Watkins. I wasn't going to frame it specifically with Deshaun Watson, but you could throw in Mitch Trubisky there.
He may go earlier, though. That's the rumor?
He could. I mean, who knows? Or he could go later. My point, the whole point of this question.
Sorry.
Brody,
interrupting Dave.
Brody, if he does have a first-round rookie quarterback throwing to him, is that a good enough talent for you to get on board with Watkins again in 2017?
Won't be drafting him.
Oh, there you go.
No
Sweet
rookies.
and simple. Yeah.
What about the tight end? What about Charles Clay? Then you're all over Clay.
Clay would be a stud.
Yeah, see, right? That's the rookie quarterback throwing to the tight end. All right, that's interesting.
Especially one that I've seen play. He's very solid, but it does there's a learning curve, and unfortunately, the deep ball is something of a technique. I'd be a little more nervous, to be honest. Tyrod's a very good
Brody,
deep ball,
this
kind of
is
like
the
Joe
only.
Flacco.
You like Flacco? Yeah.
Well, and Tyrod Taylor, one of the great things about him was he could throw the deep ball. I mean, he knew how to do that. He knew how to connect with Watkins, and he made him very valuable this past year. So I think that's an interesting point. If they do draft a rookie quarterback who does show that he has a penchant for the deep ball. What's interesting is the guy that's talked about in draft circles as far as a first-round rookie quarterback pick. That probably has the best deep ball or the most powerful arm might be DeShone Kizer, and he's the one guy that everybody says is not ready to play right away. So he probably has the longest route to get to the field, but he also might present the easiest way for fantasy value if a rookie quarterback is throwing to Watkins in Buffalo. So very interesting, very compelling stuff that I'm sure we'll get into more over the next few months. But We'll try to rein it in. I don't want to get into too much dynasty talk yet. I just got to calm myself down.
We have a lot of content to cover for the next 50
Whatever.
weeks.
Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you for the next question before I get too excited about Dino.
Okay, so Brody, this was the only FFPC league you participated in this past year. And as a side note, now that you have $20,000 minus the taxes, we do have other leagues, so feel free to join more. How did you prepare for the dual flex and the 1.5 PPR scoring for tight ends as you got ready for this varsity draft? We saw you took Kelsey, so obviously you drafted one fairly early.
I have done the flex several times, but the 1.5 was definitely an interesting. What I did was I just ranked out my tight ends, added 1.5 points to the catches, and ranked it that way. And Kelsey is a nice, steady guy that I've never actually drafted before. It's my first year I've ever drafted him. Just like the fact that if he can get 75, 80 catches, you take a 1.5. That's an immense number. The other one that I thought had a nice upside I grabbed in the 7th round was Ertz. Now, I'm not a big fan of Ertz because he's a high, he can have the 2 for 20 game and the 3 for 14 game, but he can also have the 15 catch like he did last year. So I went with the theory of, in a league where you're having wins and losses, he's not a good guy to have just because you're going to have the ups and downs and the swings of the wins and losses based on that. But in this format, which I think is the true format that I enjoy, those guys don't hurt you. And actually, Zach Ertz can be a positive if he has a big game. You need those points. And a bad game, they just kind of blend in. So I just kind of ranked him out, and Kelsey was by far one of my highest ranked players on my board. So when he fell, it was boy, I can't wait. So I think Jeremy Maclin was picked right in front of us, so I was pretty pumped because I sure didn't want him. So.
Bulky drafted Maclin a lot last year.
But, I did take Travis Kelce a couple of times this past year, too, so it wasn't all bad for me.
I think there was one pick where you took Maclin over. Who was it again?
Le'Veon Bell, and it's interesting to bring that up because we are going to be talking about Le'Veon Bell, his 3rd straight season-ending injury with him on the sidelines. We're going to talk about that with Brody Brown, the 2016 FFPC Varsity number 2 $20,000 champion. Talk about Le'Veon Bell right after this. You're listening to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour right here on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. The aforementioned Le'Veon Bell before the break is the topic of conversation. We are talking with the FFPC Varsity number 2 champion from last year. He won $20,000 winning this league. His name is Brody Brown. My name is Eric Balkman. He's Dave Gerzak. This is the HSFF Hour. And Brody, Le'Veon Bell ends the season on the sideline. He was in uniform, battling a groin injury, could not give it a go from about the mid-second quarter on in the AFC Championship game. Apparently pre-existing coming into that game. Does knowing that he was battling this groin injury, knowing that he could not give it a go with everything on the line, does that have you staying away from him in drafts next year despite his overwhelming upside?
No, not at all. The thing that would scare me more than that injury is the drug strike. But you have all 3 of the backs at the top are all, issues. Obviously, David Johnson had an injury at the end, and Zeke still has a suspension looming. So that had me stressed half the season, to be honest. Because I would assume something's going to happen in regards to his legal issue. So I still put those guys as the top 3 backs and wouldn't hesitate to draft any one of them.
Well, let me ask you this, because they clearly are the top 3 running backs. But as you bring up each of these 3 guys having potential issues that could loom into 2017, would you be taking them with the first overall pick, or would you be sticking with somebody like Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Julio Jones, or even Rob Gronkowski? You can make a case for with FFPC scoring. Would any of those 3 make be your selection at the 101 next season?
1-1, 1-2, and 1-3.
Wow. Okay. There you go. So to you, it's just the difference, the tier difference between the kind of production you're getting with those 3 running backs versus the kind of production you'd be getting, at receiver or tight end, given what you can get when it comes back to you in the 2nd or 3rd round.
When healthy, Bell gets the ball almost every down. And yes, as long as you're drafting, whether it's D'Angelo or somebody else, you're fine with Bell, because anybody who touches the ball in Pittsburgh does does extremely well. And unfortunately, as a Ravens fan, I have to see it all the time. So Johnson is great as well. He stays on the field the whole game, and obviously Zeke, even if he has a few game suspension, still is an immense talent with an amazing offensive line. So until they have some guys lose to free agency or anything like that, that offensive line's too good not to have Zeke having a big year. Now, ranking the 3, that I really wouldn't know yet. I'd have to kind of see what's going to happen with the injuries and possible suspensions, but those would be the 1, 2, 1, 3 picks for sure. Wouldn't even be a question in my mind.
There you go. So Bell, Johnson, and Elliott in no particular order. Let's get to a couple of emails here for Brody. First one's from Matt in Cincinnati, Ohio. He writes, "Hello, Brody. Looking ahead to 2017, what are the chances that Austin Hooper can finish as a top 10 tight end in the FFPC?" Thank you for the email, Matt in Cincinnati, Ohio. Austin Hooper was a rookie this past year for Atlanta, came on the middle part of the season. Obviously, he will never be the number 1 pass-catching option in Atlanta as long as Julio Jones is there. But Hooper showed some value as a rookie. What are the chances that he can finish in the top 10 tight ends next year? Because the top 10 tight ends can kind of be fluid. It wasn't that impressive of a group of guys this past year. We could see some new names come into that top 10 next year. What are the chances, Brody, that Austin Hooper is one of those names?
I tell you what, I like him a lot. The only concern I have for all the tight ends is just it's a tough position. And for somebody to stay healthy, in a sense like the Greg Olsen, it's tough. So I think the top 10 is going to change almost every single year because of the position that it's a tough position to stay healthy for 16 weeks. He's got a quarterback that doesn't really, at least lately, like to throw to the tight end, but I no doubt about it. I actually think that that's a pretty good call, and being a top 10 tight end wouldn't shock me at all. He'd be a nice second tight end in the varsity format.
Could be, yeah, exactly. Could be a guy that floats in under the radar that you can grab. If you grab an elite guy right away, you could grab him similar to the way that you did Kelsey and Ertz last year in varsity, Brody. You could definitely do that with an elite guy and Austin Hooper again in 2017. Jim in New Brunswick, New Jersey has the second email here. He writes, with Cam Newton and Mike Tolbert still factoring in the backfield, even if the Panthers add a running back in the first round, are we overvaluing his actual impact a little bit with goal line touches probably not coming his way? Congrats on varsity. That is Jim in New Brunswick, New Jersey. I've actually seen a lot of, thanks for the email, Jim. I've seen a lot of mock drafts that have the Panthers. Usually it's been Leonard Fournette if they're taking a running back. I saw one with them taking Dalvin Cook as well. But when you think about how Carolina runs their offense when they get close to the goal line, are you at all concerned about taking a guy like Fournette or Cook if the Panthers were to draft them early, or really any running back early, because they may not get those goal line touches that they would had they been drafted by a different team? Brody, your thoughts on that?
The only concern I have is not really Cam taking away what it is. They've been going with a two-back offense for as long as you can remember. And before D'Angelo left, it just seems like they want to share too much. So between the quarterback, 2 running backs, a chubby fullback, it's too many mouths to feed. Cook is a great talent. I like him as the number 1 tailback next year. I just would be a little leery of seeing, too many mouths to feed. So I don't know if it's a factor of who you put in there. It's just a factor of how they run their offense.
At Carolina too, we're also assuming sort of a bounce back year for them too in this, in this vision or in this scenario, with them getting a lot of goal line touches to really help running back. And even if that happens, I agree with your point. Cam Newton, Mike Tolbert, Jonathan Stewart could still be there. I mean, who knows? There are a lot of backs there that have gotten the job done in the past. So let's look forward to 2017. Look in the Brody Brown crystal ball here. Give us a guy that you think might be an early round bust this coming season, and then a guy that you think will end up having big value as a late round sleeper in drafts.
I'll give you a couple busts. First would be Melvin Gordon. Unfortunately, there'll be some backups coming in. I assume Woodhead will be re-signed. That'd be one. Just that season was too magical for the time it was. Blunt's 18 touchdowns are probably going to be overvalued next year. So Deion Lewis did look pretty well over the last couple of weeks. So I would assume he's going to get back to his normal, scat back and take some carries away. Sleeper, I still like Duke Johnson. I still like Wendell Smallwood, Hunter Henry are probably the three that I like the most. I think the tight end, I think Gates is, I can't believe he hasn't retired, but great red zone target. But when it comes in between the 20s, doesn't seem to be looked at very much. So I think there could be a nice amount of catches for the tight end there.
Antonio Gates, here's my theory. Just hanging on for one more year so he can move up from San Diego to play in Los Angeles and start a nice transition to a nice Hollywood career right after that. Just play one season in L.A., get the touchdown tight end record, and then just, be on The View or something like that. Or start starring in Spike Lee movies. Of course, he films in New York, so.
They open a few chains of Antonio's steakhouses.
There you go.
That's what they do.
Hey, Brody, you bring up Wendell Smallwood, and I think he's an interesting guy. Maybe, and I don't know if you play Dynasty, but I think an interesting guy to know because it sounds like the Eagles might be cutting Ryan Matthews as a cap casualty, and then Darren Sproles is obviously never going to be the bell cow there. I mean, he fulfilled a certain role, the Sproles role, as it were, very well. But Wendell Smallwood is an interesting cat, I think, to sell on before the NFL draft because you might be able to convince somebody that, hey, they like Smallwood. They're going to get rid of Matthews. Smallwood's going to be a big-time player in that Eagles backfield next year. And even if they do draft somebody, Smallwood still might be a big-time guy in Philly next year, Brody.
I agree. I had him on a few teams this year. Obviously, when you're grabbing guys that have an unknown commodity, you're going to hit on some, you hope, and you're going to miss on a few. And he was one between him and Booker I had on many, many teams this year. But neither really panned out like I expected, that's for sure. But I will go back to the well on Mr. Smallwood and not on Booker. I learned a valuable lesson.
So let's see about this lesson. You have $20,000 that you just won. You sent your wife off up to bed before you knew you were going to win.
Right.
But I have a feeling you may have told her anyway. So, Brody, what are you and your wife's plans for the $20,000?
I put a chunk towards baseball for this year. I have next year's drafts mapped out for coming back down to Vegas, and a portion of that went to the kids' college fund.
Sweet.
That was
smart spending.
Yeah. The only thing, I bought a big screen TV to have a little movie room. So nothing too extravagant.
Those are at least not that expensive anymore.
No, the 4Ks are fairly cheap, that's for sure. So it was kind of a reinvestment of baseball and football. So it was kind of a couple of small things, but take the rest and put it towards next year's varsities and a couple other events. I plan on doing both varsities next year.
Excellent. Well, defend the belt and get a new one.
We better fill them.
Pull the old Conor McGregor and just trot a couple of belts right over both shoulders at the end of the 2017 season. Brody Brown has been our guest here tonight on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Congrats on the varsity victory and the $20K, and best wishes to you in the 2017 football season as well as baseball as well. Hey, listen. Brody, you got to get those steals early, man. Get the steals early this year, and it will be an enjoyable 6 months for you.
Hey, I appreciate everything. One thing I have learned, this format in FFPC is the best format, the most organized format. I enjoyed it. I've had good conversations with everybody through there. The players that I met and have built good relationships with, it's been a great experience. So for everybody that hasn't played, it's an amazing area. So I do like the format in this. That's one thing I do enjoy. I wish there were more leagues like this. I'm not a big main event guy. There's just a lot of things that you have to do in order to accumulate something like a $20,000 victory. So this is a great format for me, and I was hoping there'd be more of those. But it's a great run league.
Well, it's very kind of you to say. Dave is already writing furiously. Offer more varsity leagues next year, so we'll hopefully have more to offer there. Listen, man, thanks a lot for hanging out with us tonight. We really appreciate it, and best of luck to you in 2017.
Take care, guys. We'll see you next year.
Brody Brown, the 2016 FFPC Varsity number 2 $20,000 champion. Very interesting guy. Good insight tonight. Very, it's always difficult doing these interviews at this time of the year because we're already looking forward to 2017, and it's difficult to prognosticate sort of how situations are going to be, what direction teams are going to go. I feel like Brody was really dialed in on what he's already thinking is going to happen next year, and his fantasy analysis, or what he plans on doing as a result of that too. Very good stuff.
Yeah, it was great. I totally agree. I think he's already almost ready.
There's a reason that he won $20,000 playing fantasy football last year.
Travis Kelce.
That's one of the reasons. Ezekiel Elliott was probably another one. We're going to take a quick break, but we're going to answer your emails when we come back here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Eric Balkman, Dave Gerzak, Fantasy Sports Radio Network. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is here for you year-round. 10/9 Central, blogtalkradio.com/HSFF. Fantasy Sports Radio Network on Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 Central. Always good time to talk to you guys about fantasy, talk with you guys about fantasy year-round. And let's get into some of those conversations right now.
Got a question for Eric, Dave, or tonight's guest? Send them a tweet at HSFF Hour on Twitter. Email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. Post it in the chat room during the broadcast. Hashtag your tweet with HSFF, or just smack Eric in the head. That's highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com or at HSFF Hour on Twitter.
Just noticing, is that your wedding ring that you have on, your wedding band? What is that?
So when I was at that outdoor retailer trade show, there's this.
This is the Salt Lake City one?
Yeah, there's this, one of these booths called Groove Rings, and they sell these rubber wedding bands that you can wear, I guess, whether it's for law enforcement or people that are working out or whatever.
Andy Dalton always wears that rubber wedding band?
Right, or Dalton and Roadhouse, right? I mean, somebody like that who might, if they get their metal ring caught in something, or maybe you work in a factory or something.
Yeah, like a
machine
shop or something.
Would you rather keep your ring or your finger? And I'd rather keep my finger. So the thing is, they gave me one for free, and I was going to actually order them, but I've kept it on, and it's actually weird because I'm kind of getting used to it. So now I just kind of wear it.
Is that reversible?
It's probably not supposed to be, but I think the gray on the outside is lame, so I just put the orange on. So.
Oh, so that's actually the inside of it.
The inside, but I think it's the cooler part.
Yeah, it does look cooler that way. What's your wife think about it?
Yeah, she's like, whatever.
Doesn't care. I have this. I got this for Christmas this year. I always like those tearaway calendars with a different thing on each day. Yeah,
like the half naked woman.
No, I mean I'm more like some quote, like sports trivia or so I got an awesome one this year. Movie quotes, and it's a different movie quote every day, and not today, but yesterday's is from Roadhouse, and it's
really
pain don't hurt. Dalton, Roadhouse. It's fantastic. Really, really great stuff. Well, let's get to some more great stuff here. First email is from Tommy in Brooklyn, New York. He writes, we heard some of Balky's early round dynasty guys last week. What about Dizzle's Dino Dish this week? That is Tommy in Brooklyn, New York. Tommy, thank you for the email. We talked about that. We had John Modef and Tom Zaretic on last week. Who won the Off the Grid Challenge.
Yeah, those guys are cool guys.
Runner-ups in 2015, won the whole thing in 2016.
Nice.
They co-hosted last week. We talked a little Dynasty with them because John actually plays Dynasty. And he said in one of his Dynasty leagues that he's in, he had a really rough year. And he has I can't remember if he said he had the 101 or the 102, but he said the two guys that he's looking at there, as of right now, I mean, a lot can change. Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook. I'm very excited about it. I thought I was going to be the outlier on, I like Cook better than Fournette. And then I'm looking at some ADP and some rankings out there, and a lot of them already have Dalvin Cook ahead of Leonard Fournette. So I'm obviously very excited about Dalvin Cook. I like Mike Williams quite a bit. I think Corey Davis is going to be a very good pro. Your thoughts on any dynasty rookies that you already had your eye on, that you've already are intrigued by, as we are still several months away from the NFL draft?
Well, before I get into my stuff, let's just talk about. I have 2 questions for you.
Okay.
What's your favorite, university that you like?
University of Wisconsin Oshkosh. Hail Titans, baby.
I mean real universities, not the crappy ones we went to.
The Wisconsin Badgers. Of course.
Give me the real answer, Ball.
Florida State Seminoles are a close first.
Okay. Second, where did Dalvin Cook, in quotes, attend college? Where did he go to practice?
He went to high school in Miami, for whatever it's worth. He may or may not have played for the Florida State Seminoles.
Oh, so your number 1 player happened to go to your number 1 favorite school.
Hey, listen, when Jameis Winston was coming out, this is after he won the Heisman and the national championship. I had the opportunity to draft him in the 2nd round, and I didn't take him anywhere. So don't throw my fandom in my face.
You know what?
This one.
I'm glad you brought up Jameis Winston, Seamus.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with that nickname.
Dalvin doesn't have any, of those types of things.
Actually,
does he?
He might.
What is up with your people?
He actually, a year or 2 ago, was charged with striking a woman at a bar.
Was that one video? No.
That was actually a different Florida State quarterback.
For crying out loud.
Yeah, that he and he actually transferred, or that he got kicked off the team. I can't remember which. But
probably at South Alabama. We'll see him in the NFL. It's playing the Isaiah Crowell role.
There actually is a very talented. I think his name is Gerald Bennett, if I'm remembering correctly, a tight end from South Alabama who actually could be. He's been talking about as like a first-round pick. I don't think he has those character issues, but he just played at a small school.
Right.
Anyway, Cook, the charges are dropped. They didn't have enough evidence or whatever it was. There's no video.
They're off, whatever.
I don't know. But
yes.
Apparently, and I just read this literally 45 minutes before he went on, he was charged, or there was some animal abuse issues with him. He chained up 3 baby pit bull puppies to the point where the chains were like choking their necks.
What are
and he
these
just
people
left
doing?
them there. Again, this is just,
you know what?
There's stuff out there about that. I don't know how true they are. I never heard about it his entire college career, and then I just read about it tonight. So
all right.
There might be some stuff there.
Well, I still might like Cook best.
Yeah. I mean, he's a guy to be paying attention. He can pick up the blitz. He's great at catching passes.
Yep.
Total home run hitter.
Yep.
Shows a Le'Veon Bell-like patience for the line to develop.
That's a pretty big statement. He's like, Le'Veon Bell is like singularly unique.
Okay, well, he's not at that level. It's Le'Veon Bell-like.
If Jesus Christ had no sins, Le'Veon Bell is patience. That's like the same thing.
Yeah, Le'Veon Bell has Jesus Christ-like patience when it comes to the line.
You put it better than I did.
So Cook is a guy to look at. Mike Williams. I'm excited about Corey Davis.
Jesus Christ level patience.
Right. Yes. Any other guys that did we want to talk about Cooper Kupp? Because this guy is all people are talking about right now, the Eastern Washington standout.
Okay, well, yeah, you can talk about him. I want to talk. I mean, I don't really know a crazy ton about Christian McCaffrey other than the gameplay I've seen. Yeah. I'll just go briefly. I mean, looks fantastic, hard to tackle. Went to Stanford. Now Balky, that's a university.
Yeah, pedigreed, by the way. Father's Ed McCaffrey, played many years in the NFL.
So I like.
And by the way, his brother just got signed on the Packers practice squad.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like him. Actually, I like him. I know that maybe he'll be used in too many ways where he's not so fantasy relevant, but I think he will be actually used well by a team that drafts him. So we'll see what they say when they draft him. But I like McCaffrey actually.
I've seen a lot of people mock Christian McCaffrey to the New England Patriots at the end of the first round. Boy, that'd be the worst thing in the world for everybody. You have Blount, White, Deion Lewis, and Christian McCaffrey all on the same team.
Yeah, then they interview McCaffrey. It's like, oh, what are your plans for this series? Like, I'll do whatever they want me to do. And it's like, it's like.
No, don't say that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't care. I'll do whatever. I just want the team to win. It's like, no, you want my fantasy team to win. Like
Fournette, like somebody says, like, oh, what are your goals this year? It's like, well, they drafted me in the first round. They better use me like a first round pick.
Exactly.
That's what I want to hear.
Exactly. That is what you want to hear.
So that is, and again, we'll get into Dynasty quite a bit more as the season goes on. John in Southfield, Michigan. Hello, AFC and NFC. I couldn't believe when I read that the Dolphins still have not made a decision on whether Ryan Tannehill will have surgery on his knee yet. I'm growing concerned that this organization does not know how to manage its studs, and I'm also worried that Devontae Parker and Jarvis Landry could suffer from this decision as well. Am I overreacting to the Dolphins' offense taking a step back? Thanks, guys. John in Southfield, Michigan. Thank you for the email. Dave, go ahead and finish your thought about this email.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think the organization has definitely improved from the the worst era ever, and although they still do have Tannehill, by the way, so that's one kind of negative. But it sounds like
you don't like Tannehill. Oh, I suppose I was on Tannehill last year, not you.
Well, I mean, I was always hopeful for him because he was such a young quarterback coming, young
hot
player.
Wife.
Yeah, hot wife. That was always the positive. And but he's and you never know. Some quarterbacks take I hate to say give him a chance, but some people take the super long time. And I still don't think he's gonna be fantastic ever. But I guess the question is, knee surgery. It doesn't sound like this is a knee surgery that's going to take 8 months to recover from. So I don't think they're too worried about it.
But I think his point is look, this is your franchise quarterback, and
but they're not maybe even sure if he is. Are they?
Okay, well, right now he's their starting quarterback.
Right, okay. Sorry.
And here it is now. How long has the season been over with? I mean, we're almost all the way done with the postseason. It's been more than 2 or 3 weeks. And they still have not made a decision on whether this guy is going to have surgery or just rehab.
You know how hard it is to get appointments, nowadays? Maybe he's waiting to get an appointment with
guarantee you Ryan Tannehill
Andrew,
is not,
whatever his name is.
Tannehill is not standing in any lines at any doctor's office. There's no way that's...
Andrew, what's his name? Dr. Andrews.
Isn't that guy dead?
I don't know.
James Andrews? I'm pretty sure he's dead.
Oh, he died?
I'm fairly certain.
Maybe they're trying to find a good doctor like Andrews.
They're trying to...
Andrew Howard.
Maybe that's why he hasn't had surgery yet, because he's still waiting in line for a doctor who is dead.
He's not dead.
Hold on.
He was born in 42. He's alive and healthy.
Who's the guy who died? There was some famous physician that died. I really thought it was James Andrews. Maybe he's a baseball guy. God, I wish Brody Brown was still on because he could answer this question.
I'm sure he could. Anyway, so I'm not too worried about it at all. I think that I have confidence. First time I've said this in a long time. I have confidence in the Dolphins.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Let's move on and talk with or answer the email for Rick in Houston, Texas. He writes, "Welcome back, Dave." So I guess this question is just for you.
All right.
Color me skeptical. Actually, this is a good question for you. Color me skeptical when Andy Reid talks up one of his players, but he said he's hoping Tyreek Hill doubles his snaps next season. If we take his average snaps per game from 2016, doubling it would put him over 50 snaps a game next year. Are you guys believing, I guess it is for both of us, are you guys believing Reid here, or is this hashtag coach speak? Rick in Houston, Texas, throwing in a hashtag in his email.
Nice.
Tyreek Hill, doubling his snaps, 50 snaps a game on the field next year. Your thoughts?
Okay, but I mean, first of all, can you believe Andy Reid? So then I go back and I look at what does the talent level look like. And Hill, as a fifth-round pick, who he would have been a much earlier pick had he not done what he did.
Right.
He would have been drafted much sooner. He was phenomenal in the time that he played. He really wasn't all that active until week 9 or 10. I mean, at that point, he had I think a 5 for 98 in a touchdown game after a long touchdown in the game before. So he wasn't seeing a whole lot of action prior to that, maybe on kickoffs and punts. So I think Hill is super talented. I mentioned before his 100 timing in 9.98 100. Right. Oddly enough, I logged in a RotoViz before the show.
Right. And
they have apparently the NFL releases data that they had the 20 fastest ball carriers each week.
Okay.
So there were what do we have here? 202 total entries on RotoViz.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill had 13 of 202. 13 fast. It was a run, the fastest speed at which was the top speed.
Right.
He had 13 of 202. The next highest player was Ted Ginn at 8, Travis Benjamin 7, Mike Wallace 7, Ezekiel Elliott 5. So and Odell Beckham 4. I mean, that's incredible. 13 of 202. And this guy is lightning fast. So now I look at, so you have Kelsey, who's really a fantastic tight end. You have Macklin, who's an underperforming guy who came over and he runs over the middle and stuff. So to me, Tyreek Hill is either the number 1 or number 2 most exciting playmaker on that team. I think he's the most exciting playmaker on that team. You have to get him involved.
Yeah.
I'm buying him. I've bought him at the 1-1-2 spot in that range. That's kind of where he's being traded for. And actually semi-debated a person, and oddly enough, it was a Twitter debate that was friendly. It's amazing how it can happen. We politely disagree with each other.
Who's it with?
I forgot his name, but we followed each other and something. And I think he has a podcast as well.
At Real Donald Trump.
I wish he followed.
At POTUS.
He followed me. But I think he's definitely worth it. I think he's worth a shot.
Tyreek Hill is one of the most overrated players in the NFL. I don't care what anybody says.
I don't think the player you get at 1-1-2 is going to be better than what Tyreek Hill's upside could bring you.
Would you draft him ahead of Jeremy Maclin next year?
Yeah, I would absolutely.
Really? No question? You think he's their number 1 receiver? Not pass catcher, but number 1 wide receiver next year?
I think he'll be the number one fantasy producer at the wide receiver position for that team.
I guess that's all I care about. Who gets more targets next year between those two, Macklin and Hill?
It might be Macklin possibly. But I mean,
it's close.
If you're in a league where you don't reward like punt return and kickoff return touchdowns, I mean that's a little bit of a ding. And I know that those are very highly variant, so it's tough to just say, oh yeah, well, hopefully he gets one this week. But when if you start a player like that every week, I think he has a lot more upside than the Mike Wallace types, where it's like,
no question,
or like a Deshaun Jackson even, where it's like you're hoping for a 4 for 80 and a touchdown.
Right.
Hill can kill you in so many ways. I mean, whether it's a run or reverse, when you're running that fast in the NFL, I mean, there's only no one's really catching him. It's a matter of cornering him, really. So it's like
taking the right angle.
And he's not a small guy. I think he's like 5'10". I mean, small, but he's not like this 5'10", 160. He's like 185.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a strong dude.
I was also creeping on a Twitter conversation today. I didn't get involved in it. I think it was with some RotoViz guys, and somebody said, Can somebody tell me if the Pro Bowl rules have changed this year from last year, something like that? And then somebody replied with, "There's no kickoff returns or punt returns or whatever." And then
no defense.
And then they wrote ... So suboptimal Tyreek, which is true. I mean, it really we'll be getting a dose of suboptimal Tyreek on Sunday night. Dean in Aurora, Illinois. Last season, the Magic Cord averaged just over 3 targets a game while Norv Turner was OCing.
Exciting.
When Pat Shurmur stepped in, his targets increased to more than 5 per game. Is this a sign of things to come for a breakout for the Magic Cord? Or am I reading too much into this? Abracadabra? ? That's Dean in Aurora, Illinois.
Pretty funny, actually.
Thank you for the email, Dean. Thank you for the comedy. Cordell Patterson is not a guy I'm still very excited about next year. There's some questions what Minnesota is going to be doing with those receivers. Remember, Laquan Treadwell was their first-round pick last year. They want him to show something. Stephon Diggs was a target monster. Kyle Rudolph was getting a ton of targets. Charles Johnson's a free agent. But then we look at Adam Thielen. I mean, he really stepped up and looked very good next year. Very difficult for me to see a guy like Cordell Patterson carving a role into this, what we think is going to be a Sam Bradford-led offense. I'm not excited.
Yeah, me either. 5 targets a game is nothing to scoff at, but it's also nothing to really get excited about.
Yeah. You'd be looking at essentially like 85 targets on the season.
If Rudolph gets hurt, if Diggs is out for a while, and then Treadwell continues to suck, which I think the last one is probably the most possible, but he might get better. He was never all that fast. Treadwell could be Cordell Patterson Part 2 just coming into his own.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. I mean, if you take him in the 17th, 18th round, I guess he might be your best shot at it. But
it's what we've been saying for years with Patterson. Like, take him in those DEs and enjoy the action scoring when you can get it, because he is a prolific kickoff returner. I mean, he's very, very good at that. In fact, I think he led the NFL in return yardage in like 2 of the last 3 years on kickoff. So certainly, if you have action scoring, which you should. You can get him in these 28-round formats. You get him late. I mean, he's going to pay off when he pays off for his team, but you don't want to count on every week production from him.
Yeah, like if you watch a Vikings game, you'll watch it, and every once in a while you'll see Patterson make. You'll see a good play made.
I know.
You're like, oh, that was Patterson. Oh, that was a nice play. But you don't. It's almost like who is that guy? He got drafted by the Raiders like 9th overall, and then
Darius Hayward-Bay.
Yes, it's like DHP. Every once in a while, DHP makes a play. Like, that's what they were hoping for. But if you don't want an every once in a while guy, you want a Larry Fitzgerald guy where it's like every player like, oh, damn, that was awesome.
Well, the problem with Patterson is he's so physically imposing. Like, he looks like
he should be awesome.
Like he could sell jeans, as Billy Bean would say. And so when he does make a play, it's like, man, why don't they use this guy more?
Yeah.
And then you see him, run a sloppy route or just, not even come close on a pass, and you're like, that's why they knew.
Well, two things we did with Patterson. We gave him a cool nickname, the Magic Cord. No one else did that, and we've always not liked him. So I think we've been consistent all along. I don't like him. I've never really liked him, and we haven't been wrong so far. So at least we got a few things right, and that's one of them.
Just getting a tweet here from @DasCoffee on Twitter. Dr. Joby, the Tommy John guy, died. Now I feel like I should know that guy's name, because that's not ringing a bell. Tommy John surgery doctor. I'm going to ask Google here I suppose, why don't I just actually Google the guy's name instead of just Frank Joby, March 6, 2014. He performed the first ever Tommy John surgery. God, I thought he was more well-known than that. I mean, obviously he is well-known, but...
Also, just to verify, Dr. Johnny Fever from WKRP in Cincinnati is also still alive.
I was wondering why you're looking that up.
I wasn't sure, but that doctor also still alive.
As God is my witness,
he might be good
turkeys could fly.
He looks healthy, but it might be good for that Deadpool that Manderfield's going to create.
Jay in Los Angeles, California. That guy, I think, was heavily into drugs in the 70s. Jay, like he played a character, was too. Jay in Los Angeles, California. Gronk's injury scaring you off him for the number 1 tight end in 2017? Thanks to the email, Jay. You get some contenders to that. Travis Kelce, Greg Olsen.
Party vote? Is he doing the party vote?
Jordan Reed, Rob Gronkowski. You still taking Gronk number 1 out of those guys?
Yeah, I am. I'm not that all that happy about it. You saw the hesitation there.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing. It's an easy decision for me because I just won't take Gronk next year based on where I think you're going to have to grab him. But if I'm cornered, like Volky, if you were doing rankings, who would be your number 1 tight end? It's probably still Gronk, but man, Travis Kelce's tempting. The thing with Kelce is, like, we're talking about the rise of Tyreek Hill in 2017. That's got to come at the expense of somebody. Yeah. And Kelce had such a massive ceiling-ish year this year that he could actually take a step back. I'm not worried about Greg Olsen taking a step back. I do worry about Jordan Reed just for the injury aspect of it, because if they lose both Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson, and Josh Doctson, by the way, still not running. We should have brought that up on the show. Jordan Reed could be in for, like, this massive target season too. So, but I still think Gronkowski is the guy. He's just, I mean, you can be talking about the greatest tight end of all time. What is he? His age 27 year? Age 28 year?
Don't forget Tony Gonzalez. I mean, Gronk's pretty awesome, but
well, I'm saying he could be. I'm not saying he is, but he's still a couple years away from 30. I think that it still makes sense that he is the number 1 tight end drafted next year.
Even though he's a big partier, he still is a hard worker. So, I mean, he's a guy who always is, if there's rehab to be done, he's doing the rehab.
I stumbled upon this great article in Sports Illustrated, and of course I just skimmed through it like an idiot, just because I'm so far behind on my SIs. But it was like...
Not to mention your podcast and your recording.
No, podcasts I'm all caught up.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I've been caught up on that for quite some time. The Sports Illustrated, this was like right when the NFL season was starting. It was about the brains behind Rob Gronkowski, how he puts out this image of like this partier, likes to have a great time, just doesn't think on the field, he just acts. Yeah. But he actually is a pretty intelligent football player, and he takes you through, like, how he assesses a defense and he gets to the line, what he's doing based on what he sees and stuff like that. Yeah, so very interesting stuff from Rob Gronkowski. Well, it was from like September, so
and probably was behind a paywall.
Nah, I don't know about that. All right. Final email tonight, Todd in Wichita, Kansas. Hello, FFPC guys. Big Ben dropped a few hints he might retire after this season. You think he actually pulls the trigger on doing it this year? And how are you handling your Dino rosters based on this? Thanks, gents. That's Todd in Wichita, Kansas. Think Big Ben retires? You think he's played his last down in the NFL?
Found the article.
Football Mastermind. There you go. Andy Benoit.
mmqb.si.com.
Nice. Yeah. Because that was the MMQB SI takeover. They took over the whole magazine, that issue. So.
Just Google Sports Illustrated Rob Gronkowski article, you'll find.
Yes. Ben Roethlisberger. Has he played his last down?
No.
I agree. And how are you treating your Dino rosters based on this? I have one quarterback, and Blake Harrington, and it's Ben Roethlisberger, and I'm not concerned.
You feel good about it?
He'll be back. It'll be fine. I think this is one of the – Mike Tomlin said, like, look, this isn't the first time this has come up, okay? He might have just said this publicly for the first time, but it's certainly not the first I've heard of it. I take it very seriously. And, I just think that when it comes down to it, he's going to hand over like $20 million or something if he was to retire from a signing bonus. He's not doing that. So I have full confidence he's coming back next year. I hope he is, because I do own Martavis Bryant in that league. And I'm hoping that I can count on him.
I think you have to be more worried about Bryant coming back than the big.
Well, I mean, I think he will come back. Certainly there's some hoops to jump through, but the stuff I've read has been very positive about Martavis Bryant.
Good for him.
And this was a very positive show tonight, Dave.
Actually.
Very good show.
No swearing.
Minimal swearing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think you always drop a couple of cusses.
Did I?
Every show. I don't know. I just assume it's
There was the talk about the other stuff. colonoscopies a little bit, but
that
was
colonoscopy. That's a medical thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why we can say the word penis on the air.
If you're over 50, get one done.
Not that that's a colonoscopy. I know what a colonoscopy is. That was a shout out to News Radio. Thanks to Brody Brown, FFPC Varsity number 2 $20,000 champ, our guest tonight. Thanks to Dave Gerzak, the FFPC, Rob, our producer mutual friend, Bryce, our audio engineer, and you for once again hanging out with us for an hour and a half here on the show. Next Thursday, the Season 2 premiere of the High Stakes Lowdown featuring 2 guests, David Hubbard, FFPC main event champion, and David Shaw, FFPC high stakes player. And this will be an emphasis on the early season best ball leagues, the post-Super Bowl draft satellites, draft expert satellites that we offer at the FFPC. There'll be some good strategy analysis from David Shaw, who's been very successful at those. And then this coming Friday, you will not be around, correct?
Where am I going to be?
I don't know. I thought you were off this coming week.
I don't know. Let me look. You keep talking. I'll let you know.
Yeah, I think it is. What would it be? February 3rd is the next Friday? Yeah, February 3rd. I thought you were off.
No, Ella has a school dance, but otherwise I'm free, Balky.
Oh, okay. So you're not chaperoning or anything?
I'm not going to the dance.
You are in for a treat, my friend, because we have 2 guests this coming Friday.
2 guests.
From RotoViz and the Fantasy Football Comedy Hour is Peter Overzet, and from RotoViz, Pat Kerrane. You know them as the formerly High Stakes Fantasy Football noobs. They are noobs no longer after playing in the FFPC main event. Plus, the debut of the next Fantasyland episode that these guys work so hard on hosting and producing, all centered around the FFPC main event, live events coverage in Vegas. That is going to be released right around the Super Bowl. They're going to give us a taste of it, what it was like putting it together, their thoughts on the FFPC, what it was like playing in the main event for the first time. A lot of great stuff from those guys, so they will drop by this Friday. Can't wait for that one. So you will be here. Peter Overzet will be here. Pat Kerrane will be here. Sweet. Will be here.
Sorry.
Pick up a Dynasty Orphan, people. They're just sitting there. MyFFPC.com. A lot of great deals to be had.
Sure.
And listen, Dave Gerzak's looking for people to watch the Pro Bowl with this Sunday night.
Come on over.
Dave at MyFFPC.com. Shoot him an email. You guys can make plans. I will be playing basketball. That is going to do it for our show. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. That was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I gotta go 'cause I got me a drop top, and if I hit the switch, I can make the ass drop. Had to stop at a red light, looking in my mirror, not a jacker in sight.
Got an email from Brody Brown. I just saw he also chimed in to let me know who that doctor was.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. So, people are all over it tonight. Dr. Frank Job, or Joby, whatever it was. Rest in peace. I'm sorry for disrespecting you by not remembering you on the show tonight.
I'm going to watch Dr. Over on the airplane here on 537.
Oh, well, enjoy that.
I'm over under.